This land is mine now, Sarah. Do you sign or face the consequences?
Over my dead body, Linda! Get off my property!
I recently faced what felt like the ultimate invasion of our peaceful life. Our HOA president, Linda, arrived at our remote mountain cabin decked out in tactical gear, backed by a so-called compliance team that looked more like a paramilitary squad than neighborhood enforcers. She demanded entry for what she claimed was a routine inspection to enforce her ridiculous rules. But instead of complying, we turned the tables in a way she never anticipated, leading to a federal restraining order that hit her like a ton of bricks. Let me pull back the curtain and tell you how this nightmare unfolded, step by step, from the quiet mornings in our slice of heaven to the chaotic dawn raid that changed everything. It all started on a crisp autumn morning in the Rockies, where Sarah and I had carved out our dream life. The first hint of trouble wasn't the usual symphony of nature, the birds singing their dawn chorus, or the gentle rustle of pine needles in the breeze. No, it was the ominous growl of diesel engines grinding their way up our steep, mile-long gravel driveway, a path so rugged it deterred even the most determined delivery drivers. I stirred in bed, my eyes squinting against the faint pre-dawn light seeping through the curtains. Sarah's side was empty and cold, which wasn't unusual as a creature of habit, slipping out for her 5 a.m. run to clear her head and stay sharp from her Green Beret days. But today, that absence sent a chill down my spine that had nothing to do with the mountain air. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed, my bare feet hitting the cool hardwood floor we'd laid ourselves when we built this place. My mind was still foggy from sleep, but the sound outside snapped me alert. It wasn't a single vehicle, it was a convoy, tires crunching gravel in unison, engines straining against the incline. Trouble, my gut whispered. I pulled on a pair of faded jeans and an old army t-shirt, the fabric worn soft from years of use, and padded into the main room. Our cabin is our Pridea spacious open layout with vaulted ceilings crafted from local timber and a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the valley below like a living painting. There, silhouetted against the graying sky, stood Sarah, binoculars pressed to her eyes, her posture tense and focused, like a predator sensing intruders in her territory. "How many?" I asked, keeping my voice low, though we were miles from anyone who could overhear. She didn't lower the binoculars. "3," she replied, her tone flat and unyielding, the kind of calm that comes from years of high-stakes ops. "2 beefed-up SUVs and a heavy-duty pickup. They've pulled up at the main gate." I moved behind her, placing my hands on her shoulders, feeling the coiled strength in her muscles. Peering over her head, I could just make out the shapes in the dim light. The gate I'd welded in my workshop last year, sturdy iron bars reinforced with extra hinges after a rogue wild boar had tested its limits, was designed to keep out wildlife and the occasional lost hiker, not a determined assault team. But that's exactly what this looked like. "Let me guess," I said, a bitter edge creeping into my voice. "They're not here to drop off a welcome basket." Sarah finally lowered the binoculars and turned to face me. Her eyes, usually warm and sparkling with that quiet humor I fell in love with, were now hard as flint, reflecting the resolve that had carried her through intelligence missions in some of the world's hottest spots. "The lead SUV has the Ridgeview HOA logo plastered on the side," she said. "And I see Herlinda Thompson, passenger seat, looking like she's on a mission from hell." Linda, the venomous queen bee of an HOA we never signed up for, had been bombarding us with increasingly deranged letters for the past 3 months. It began innocently enough with nitpicks about the shade of our roof shingles not earth-toned enough, apparently, and snowballed into threats of fines that could bankrupt a small town. We'd escaped to this mountain to leave that suburban nonsense behind, but entitlement like Linda's knows no bounds. She'd tracked us down like a hound on a scent. I ran a hand through my messy hair, sighing deeply. She's nothing if not persistent. A faint, cold smile touched Sarah's lips, the kind that promised payback. She's about to learn we're the same way. Outside, the assault began in earnest. A piercing metallic screech echoed as they pried at the gate, followed by a thunderous boom. The pickup, outfitted with a crude battering ram, rammed at full force. The impact vibrated through the cabin's foundation, rattling the coffee mugs on the shelf. This wasn't a polite visit. It was a home invasion masquerading as bureaucracy, complete with clipboards and bylaws. Sarah noted the details coolly. She's got about 10 with her, all in matching khaki tactical vests. Real original. I had to stifle a chuckle despite the adrenaline surging through me. Even in crisis, Sarah's dry wit cut like a knife. All right, I said, clapping my hands to shake off the nerves. Phase 1 it is. She nodded and flipped 3 discrete switches on a panel near the fireplace, disguised as an old thermostat box. Perimeter active. Down below, the show started. Hidden sprinklers hissed to life, spewing thick plumes of white smoke, the harmless theatrical kind from concert effects, turning the clearing into a disorienting fog bank. Shouts of confusion erupted. What the hell is this? I can't see a damn thing. One of the khaki-clad goons, trying to skirt the smoke, yelped as his foot caught a tripwire. A repurposed fishing net sprang from the underbrush, hoisting him 5 feet off the ground where he dangled helplessly, swinging like an oversized piñata. Sarah turned to me. One down. This beats paying their fines any day. Through my binoculars, I watched the pandemonium. Linda emerged from her SUV, a stout woman with a severe bob haircut that screamed manager mode, her face twisted in fury as she barked orders. Her husband, Steve, a smug-faced blowhard with a perpetual sneer, stood beside her, chest puffed out like he was leading a charge at Gettysburg. But their army was stumbling in the smoke, tripping over roots, completely outmatched. A few pressed on, attempting to flank through the woods. I'll take the ridge, I said. Keep them pinned from here. Sarah grabbed her rifle case, pausing just long enough to soften her voice. Don't get shot. I'd hate to give her the satisfaction. I slipped out the back door, the cold air hitting me like a slap, and began the grueling climb up the rocky ridge overlooking our eastern approach. My heart pounded, legs burning, but the adrenaline-fueled Metis was familiar territory from my Ranger days, where survival meant outthinking the enemy. From my vantage point, the scene below was almost comical. One overconfident thug headed straight for Sarah's workshop, vanishing with a thud into the camouflaged pit she'd dug days earlier 8 feet deep, lined with mud for drainage per county code, but impossible to escape without help. As I watched, the bigger picture crystallized. We couldn't just scare them off. We needed to end this permanently. Capturing one for intel was key because I suspected Linda's obsession had nothing to do with our cabin's aesthetics. It was about something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface. To understand how we got here, you have to know our history. Sarah and I aren't recluses by nature, okay? Maybe a touch antisocial after what we'd been through. We fled the suburbs because we'd already battled one HOA beast and barely survived. Our previous home was in Evergreen Meadows, a planned community in the Midwest heartland, where the meadows were manicured lawns and the evergreen was a livery tree was identical, planted by committee. The HOA there wasn't militaristic like Linda's. It was a slow poison of passive-aggressive notes and fines that chipped away at your soul. It kicked off with the lawn. Ours was lush and green, but according to their letter, it was aggressively verdant, clashing with the neighborhood's uniform hue. $50 fine. I paid it, grumbling. Then the mailbox ours black, but the approved shades were sable or obsidian shadow. Apparently, plain black was too pedestrian. Another $100. I called their office, arguing with a drone-like secretary who repeated, "It's in the covenants, sir," like a broken record. Those covenants were their holy grail, a 300-page tome dictating everything from pet limits to holiday light brightness. As ex-military, we'd faced real threats. Me and Ranger ops across deserts, Sarah and intel gathering in volatile regions. But Evergreen's HOA nearly broke us. You can't fight fog with fists. We tried infiltrating, running for the board, attending meetings that dragged on like root canals, debating whether petunias trumped marigolds. Outvoted every time by the old guard, who clung to their petty power like lifelines. The breaking point was the treehouse. I built it sturdy and safe in our backyard for a friend's kid, hidden behind an oak, barely visible from the street. 2 days later, a thick envelope arrived. $500 fine. Tear it down or face lawsuit. I consulted my Uncle Bill, a quirky lawyer specializing in personal injury claims. "Jack, those covenants are ironclad," he said over the phone, his voice gravelly from years of courtroom battles. "You signed M when you bought." Stupid, but binding. Sarah wanted to fight, but I tore it down, board by board, feeling a piece of our freedom splinter with each nail. As the last plank hit the ground, I looked at her and said, "We're out." 2 months later, we sold, pocketed what we could, and headed west to 30 acres of raw Colorado mountain land. We built the cabin with our hands logs from the property, solar panels for power, a deep well for water. It was rugged, self-sufficient, and ours. For 2 blissful years, the only rules were nature's. Then, 6 months ago, the first letter from the Ridgeview HOA landed in our P.O. box in the tiny town at the mountain's base. I thought it was a prank in HOA in the wilderness, but it was legit, a welcome packet announcing a new association formed by a majority of landowners to preserve natural beauty and property values. Signed by President Linda Thompson. Digging deeper, I learned the truth. Thompson Development LLC, Linda and Steve's company, had snapped up hundreds of acres around us. They own more land than all individual homeowners combined, so they voted the HOA into existence and crowned themselves rulers. Gerrymandering on steroids. The rulebook followed insane edicts mirroring evergreen, but amplified. Native vegetation only, our thriving vegetable garden? Outlawed. Approved exterior palettes, our dark brown stain? Violation. Fines started rolling in. $500 for the garden, $1,000 for unapproved solar arrays, $5,000 for our hostile driveway gate. Letters grew aggressive, laced with legalese, threatening liens and foreclosure. We tossed them at first. What leverage did they have? No bank involved. But our Loyera Sharp property expert from Denver warned, their structure's solid. They can bury you in fees, lien your land, force a sale. It's corrupt, but legal. That's when it hit. This wasn't about curb appeal. Linda wanted our 30 acres. But why? Our initial response was measured. I pinned a polite letter to Linda, explaining our pre-HOA purchase and the absurdity of suburban standards in the wild. Let's resolve amicably, I ended. Naive me. 2 weeks later, a blocked call, Steve's oily voice. Jack? Bob here, Steve. Got your note. You're not exempt. Rules are rules. Pay up or it'll get expensive. I pushed back. A garden in the woods? Come on. He laughed, ugly and short. It's about compliance, pal. Protecting investments. Your shack drags down values. What values? You're the only other owners. Silence, then, our investments. Your choice. Click. Fuming, I called Uncle Bill for levity. Jack, you need alpacas, he deadpanned. Herd animals, mean as hell. Let him loose. Linda gets a face full of spit. Legal if zoned for livestock. I smiled despite myself. Thanks, but we need real strategy. We hired the lawyer to fire off a cease and desist, threatening countersuit. They retaliated, lien notice for $10,000 plus fines, plus a mandatory inspection scheduled for Saturday. This was war. Sarah and I read it in the kitchen as sunset cast golden shadows. They're not stepping foot here, she declared, jaw set. Agreed. We'd tried civility, now we'd fight smart. The inspection arrived on a clear morning. Their black SUV rolled up at 9. Linda in khaki safari chic, Steve in a branded polo, 2 muscle-bound enforcers lurking. We met at the gate. Open up, Linda cooed falsely. Scheduled review. I leaned casually. Canceled it. Private property. Steve puffed up. We have rights governance. Sarah cut in. We never agreed. This is takeover. The goons shifted, knuckles cracking. Tension thickened like fog. Linda sighed theatrically. Easy or hard? Court'll cost you more. You're trespassing, I said evenly. Leave. Rage flickered in her eyes, but uncertainty, to our calm, unnerved her. She snapped, fine. Lawyers it is, and they peeled out in dust. Victory? Hollow. Sarah nailed it. Tactical retreat. She's probing. That night, fueled by coffee, we researched deep. Thompson Development's land grabs didn't add up for a resort. A zoning file revealed partnership with Global Resources Incorporated, a mining giant. Geological maps showed rare earth minerals vein under our mountain billions in value. Global used the HOA to harass, devalue, lien, and foreclose, then strip mine. Judge Vance on their board? Pocketed. His son their lawyer? Ironclad corruption. Evil genius, I whispered. Sarah's face hardened. Law won't help. We will. No surrender. We'd use skills, not become criminals. Sarah planned. Lure them, document overreach. We prepped for a week. More cameras, audio, non-lethal traps. Bill called geese? Meaner than alpacas. No, but if silent, call feds. Word came. Eviction order from Vance, dawn service. Trap set. Engines roared at first light. Gate smashed. Smoke erupted. Nets flew. Skunk spray hit, screams echoed. From the ridge, I saw pitfalls swallow foes. Captured Dave, secure for suits. Then Chopper thumped globals, dropping execs, Vance's son with briefcase. Escalation. On the roof, I yelled defiance. Rotor wash battered me. Sarah's shots, hydraulic line, rotor hub. Bird spun. I leaped, grabbed skid, swung in chaos. Dropped as it crashed into pines. We zip-tied all. Confessions, evidence galore. FBI call. Agents arrived to our comm porch offer. Handed drives, logs. Arrests followed Linda, Steve, Vance scandalized. Global folded. Apology, firings, plans scrapped. Settlement sealed peace. Porch sunset, beer buzzing. Bill, news hero. Alpacas next time. Laughed. We won without monstrosity, smarter, stubborn. What do you think? Share below. Justified traps and shots, or too violent? Stand on rigged injustice? Your views I read.